I don't think at the time I researched appropriately and understood or was listening to my body, because my brain was just like, it was just like static. So I started pushing too early, and I ended up pushing for um, about 5 hours.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Tracy Donegan. Today I'm speaking with Angela Vieira. Angela is the founder of the Bar and Yoga Experience and a GentleBirth mom from Rhode Island. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Not long after our interview was recorded, Angela gave birth to her third baby, but she experienced some life-threatening complications and thought she might not survive. I'll include a link to Angela's birth story in the show notes, and how GentleBirth played such a huge role in getting through that experience and processing the trauma during her recovery. And now I bring you Angela Vieira.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. GentleBirth has been such a big part of my last pregnancy and this pregnancy. So thank you so much. My name's Angela Vieira, and I live in Rhode Island, and I am 39 weeks pregnant with my third baby. And like I said, GentleBirth has been a huge part of my experience, my process. So I'm really, really excited to talk with you about it today.
Thank you for joining me. It is, as I said to you, I love to just listen to the birth stories and as much detail as you can share. But I guess we'll come back a little bit and first welcome Angela Vieira and on the East Coast today, and 39 weeks pregnant. So I really appreciate you giving me this time today and sharing what will be, I'm sure, very inspirational stories and advice. But let's go back to, I guess, your first birth, if you're happy to talk about that. How did your first labor and birth go?
Yeah. So, before I get into that, a little bit about my background, because I feel like that has a huge part in kind of how I approached all of my labors. I am a yoga teacher, bar teacher. I own 2 fitness studios, and movement is basically my life. So when I found out I was pregnant, I really wanted to use my experience in movement to get me through my pregnancy, my labor, delivery, and postpartum. So I did all the things, physically. I exercised every day. I did hot yoga until I was, 40 weeks pregnant. I felt like I prepared so well. I was so ready, and physically, I was still moving and I felt great. And I went a little over, I think it was almost 41 weeks. And nothing was happening. And I was like, what is happening? Why? So I tried everything, and I was in prodromal labor for about 3 days, which was mentally so challenging. You're sitting around waiting for the baby to come, and nothing was happening. It would come and go. So I tried all the things, and we ended up just going to the hospital, and my midwife, I had 2. I got very lucky because I had 1 in training. So my midwives and my doula did lots of different techniques. If you want me to go into them, I can. And it sent me into labor, but it was very difficult mentally for me. I know my son was not in a good position. So I had really intense back labor, and I just felt like all of the preparing that I did physically went out the window, because I mentally just couldn't get in it. It was really, really difficult, and I was a little discouraged. I remember I went into active labor, and I started pushing immediately. I think he was still up here. It wasn't time yet, but I wasn't, I don't think at the time I researched appropriately and understood, or was listening to my body, because my brain was just like, it was just like static. So I started pushing too early, and I ended up pushing for um, about 5 hours. And yeah, it was not fun, but he was born, and the first couple minutes were a little scary, but he is healthy and my wild child, which explains probably the wild birth. And after that, I would say, like, I was like, I can't do that again without some sort of help, like help mentally to prepare. I did not get an epidural for that. And that was what I wanted, because movement is so important to me. The thought of not being able to move my body was like a debilitating thought to me. Like, I could not even fathom that. So regardless of the amount of discomfort, the sensations, however they were, like, that was off the table for me. So I knew with number two, I also wanted to go with that same approach, but I needed more. And that's when my new doula had recommended GentleBirth, and now here we are. So that was my first birth. He's still crazy. He's
Right.
still my crazy child. But yeah, he's got a fire in him.
Right. And how was your postpartum?
My postpartum, it was easier with my second. I think with my first, I did a lot. Like, I should have rested a little bit more, I think I felt really good physically. I didn't tear anything, which I'm grateful for, probably because I put it for so long. I don't know, but I felt pretty good. It just, like, looking back and knowing what I know now, I kind of wish I rested more. I think my postpartum experience was better than I anticipated, but again, like, looking back, I would do it differently. Like, this time I will do it differently. I think it just, like, also having your third child, like, puts things into perspective, and, like, you realize you need to slow down a little bit.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was that. Do you, like, want any more details about I could go on for literally, like, hours about that birth, but it was, I definitely remember after, like, I felt a little traumatized. Like, I was
Mm.
really upset because I felt like I prepared so well. And I, like, just, I was disappointed. I was definitely disappointed. So I knew I had to change it up for the second one.
So when you say, so what did you do to prepare for the first time around? Because this is, and your story is so common when I guess there's kind of the traditional birth preparation where, moms will go to the hospital classes and they'll read what to expect when you're expecting, and that's the preparation. So what did your preparation look like, as in, like, knowledge acquisition?
Yeah.
There was no mental prep at all?
There was no mental prep at all, but I thought, like, oh, I go to yoga every day. Like, that is, to me, was mental prep. Aside from that, so I exercised, I went to yoga, I did the perineal massage, I ate the dates, I drank the raspberry leaf tea. Um, I got chiropractic care, like, pretty frequently. I was very consistent with that pregnancy. So again, like, a lot of, like, physical things, right?
Hmm.
And I'll never forget, I did a childbirth class, and it was a very traditional one. It wasn't geared towards having, like, a natural labor. It was just, like, a very generic. And she said to me, she said, I wouldn't be surprised, Angela, if you have a difficult time because you're so active and fit, and your pelvic floor might be so tight that it would not release. And there are two things about this. One, I've learned over my pregnancies to not listen to anything that anyone says, because most of it is opinions, right? you know,
Mm-hmm.
and like experiences, which experiences are amazing to share. But I think they're individual experiences, right? Most of the time. So I remember that. And when I went into my second, I thought about what she said, and I do actually believe that kind of what she said um, was accurate. I think I worked so hard that pregnancy on strengthening my pelvic floor, doing Kegels, that I didn't know how to relax it. So my baby wouldn't drop. So I do think back to that comment in like a couple of ways. Like, I think she was trying to be helpful, and it was, but also just reminding myself to not always take what people say and take it like super to heart.
Yeah, it's interesting. There is this phenomena of people are aware of the placebo effect, but there's also the nocebo effect, where a suggestion that something is going to go wrong, especially when we hear this information from someone that we see as an authority figure, it can influence how we respond then during our birth. And it can, for some moms, become almost not a self-fulfilling prophecy because they didn't suggest it, but that piece, it plants that seed of doubt, and there's something we got, where you mightn't have been even thinking about, there's a problem with my pelvic floor. How could there be if it didn't all this work,
Right.
but that is, yeah, that's interesting to hear, because it can be a kind of a double-edged sword, knowing that, yeah, strong pelvic floor is important, but also a flexible and a pelvic floor that you can, that's strengthened and that you can relax as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I had like we can talk about it later, but I had a similar experience happen with my second where someone like planted that seed, but I think having done that mental prep, I was able to just take it and kind of throw it
Mm-hmm.
out, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I truly think people just try to be helpful, and that's really what it comes down to, but it's not always the case, you
Yeah.
know. I'll talk to you a little bit about that when we talk about my daughter Maya's birth.
So
She's like my
tell
baby.
me, yeah, tell me about your next pregnancy and labor, and tell us all the details.
So, um, I my son was what, just maybe like two and a half when we found out we were expecting, and um, for me, the first one thing that I wish I did with her that I did this time, like the first trimester for me is so scary. And I wish I started the gentle birth earlier, because I remember with Maya that first trimester being like so nervous and just like, it's just so unknown, and any little thing would like send me into a spiral, and I would feel really anxious. And I think if I had started some sort of like went back to doing like started the meditation early, or started the hypnobirthing early, it would have helped. I did not start until 20 weeks.
Mm.
But when I tell you it was maybe like 18 weeks. I was so like clockwork every single day. So I love how the app has like your day, and then it has all the things that you do and you check them off. And if there was a day that I missed one, I would just make sure I caught up the following day. And I really genuinely looked so forward to it every single night. So I did it right before bed. I would go to bed a little bit early and I'd pop my headphones in. I would do the breath work, the meditation, the pelvic floor exercises, and the hypnobirthing. I would end with that as I kind of like fell asleep. And I would save the affirmations for when I was driving, because my studios are like 40 plus minutes from my house. So I always spent my time doing that. Um, Aside from that, I did listen to the educational course that you offer, and I absolutely loved that. So I felt like I got like the full. I was like fully prepared, and it definitely took me to a place that I could never get to with meditation or the mindfulness. Like even being a yoga teacher, I'm just, I have a hard time calming my mind down. It's a huge struggle for me. And I felt like during that time, like I finally was able to do it. So thanks to you.
Right. Hey there, if you're enjoying this conversation and are passionate about evidence-based care in labour, the best way to support our work is to subscribe and share this episode with other amazing women in your life. Your support is so important to us and helps us reach more mothers with empowering content. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button and spread the love.
It was great. So that was my mental prep. I was so consistent. And I tell everybody, like, you know, I think you found me on Instagram because I rave about this. Like, I don't think that the physical preparation is enough. At least for me, it wasn't, you know? And it's hard because then again, there are people out there that like don't prep at all and like their baby just comes right out. So you never know. But for me, it was all up here. Like if I eat the dates, if I drink the tea, if I do the perineal massage, if I listen and participate in the GentleBirth, like there is no true way to know that like this one thing made a difference, right? Because I ate the dates, I didn't push long or whatever. Like there's no one way, but mentally, just knowing that I did all of these things, made a big difference. So what else did I do? I started to see a pelvic floor physical therapist for my second. I only saw her like 3 times, maybe. And then my water broke at 38 weeks. I remember it was like the wildest thing. So I sat down on the floor and I was like looking at my daughter's hospital bag because I like still could not believe I was having a girl. Like I've always wanted a little girl and I just was like, is this really happening? And I was sitting on the floor and I like took a selfie and I typed out like, might be one of the last few selfies, even though I thought I had a month because my son came like between 41, 42 weeks. Thinking I have a month, I stood up and my water broke. And I was like, this is the craziest thing. Like, it was so weird. It was like my body was like finally okay. Like, the house was clean, the bags were packed, I mentally was ready, and my water broke. And it was like so much water. I was like, what is this? It was not like, because my water broke when I pushed with Gabe, not like beforehand. So water broke 38 weeks. I literally called my doula and my OB and I was like, what the heck? Like, like this is crazy. I just was like not expecting it. So the first thing I did was popped in my headphones, laid in bed, nursed my son. Pretty sure I started sobbing because like, you know, it's all hormonal. And I just listened to the my tracks. My doula recommended the Fear Release, so I listened to that one a lot. But the Fear Release wasn't as familiar to me because it's not in the, you know what I'm talking about. It's not in like the daily
The recommended
one,
daily thing.
the
Yeah.
recommended daily. So I found that those were a little bit easier because like they were comforting because I knew them. So I listened to those and I tried everything to go into labor and I didn't. And I was really frustrated because, you know, they say 90% of people will go into labor after their water breaks. And I wouldn't, but it wasn't happening. I tried everything. We get to the hospital and tried even more. And I was nervous. I was really nervous because the chances of infection do go up after a certain amount of time. So for me, it was like weighing the pros and cons of like, how much do I want to risk this? And how long do I want to wait? And really like, how bad is the Pitocin going to be, right? So, and I always was told by everyone, Pitocin is like Pitocin's a devil, basically, right? And I remember my nurse, I'm very friendly with her, and I think she was trying to be helpful, said, these contractions are going to be nothing like you've ever experienced before if you decide to go with the Pitocin, which I think you need to. And at that point, because it was the timing, I had to. But she planted that seed in my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard. So I ended up begging them to do the Pitocin like as slowly as possible. And here I am after having birth with Gabe, where I like free roamed, like I didn't have a wire on me, like I wasn't hooked up to an IV, to now having Pitocin and monitoring, and it was it was discouraging. So popped in the headphones and just worked on that mental preparation. The whole time I had something from GentleBirth playing, and it was the best labor. Like I could have never, I can't even imagine a better labor. Like the, the beginning of it was like a lot of changing positions and trying to get the baby to drop, every contraction, tucking my pelvis, and just working through those movements that I know, and my doula helping me. And then I remember I felt like things are not going like as fast as I want them to. So I went in the tub, and I remember just like laying there, and it was almost like I was like transported to a different place. Like it was like an out of body experience. What I did was I would take a deep breath, and then my exhale would like prepare me, because you feel that wave coming, right? And I was like, okay, it's coming. And this was my transition, I'm pretty sure, at this point. And then my next breath would be like, okay, this is going to be that wave crashing. And then the exhale, it's going to start to let up. And the contractions they were intense, but I was able to manage it because I linked my breath with the contractions. I remember looking over at the nurse, and she like held the paper with the contractions, and she was like, because my breath almost like made them so consistent. It was like very, very interesting, whatever happened. And then I stood up, and I could feel a little different. And then everybody's face just like almost went like stone white, and I'm like, what's happening? And she was like coming out. So they like, I remember this is probably very dramatic, but they like put me in a wheelchair and like running down the hallway, because you're not supposed to at this hospital give birth in the tub. So they're like running down the hallway, and I'm like legs flailing. Like I just feel like it was like hysterical. I wish it was on video. And then they like jumped out of the wheelchair, and I squatted down, and she came out. Like threw a pillow underneath me. Like it was like wild. My doula said they still like talk about it. But afterwards, I just remember being like, how did this happen? Like I couldn't even, it was just, I was like on cloud nine for like weeks. It was crazy. And I just want to like tell moms, like, I'm not encouraging Pitocin, and I'm not encouraging anything, but like, you don't know what your experience is going to be like. I had the best experience with Pitocin, which sounds ridiculous, but like I did. And I think I'm probably the only person on the planet that I've ever spoken to that says that, but it's
Really
no.
not.
Okay.
No, generally, I don't hear this with traditional birth preparation, but I have heard it, and I've seen it myself with inductions, where the water, like we are talking like an induction from kind of the first step where the waters haven't released or anything yet. We're just, starting an induction, and look, watching the nurses, bump up the Pitocin and bump up, and mom is just like, yeah,
It's
keep it
interesting.
coming, so
Yeah.
it can be very different. But I do agree with that, with your, that idea that, we, Pitocin should be restricted for when it's needed. And we
Yeah.
know that it is overused in around the world in obstetrics just to, keep moms progressing. But this idea that once, and I think, it's for a lot of like new doulas as well, and around epidurals as well, Pitocin is the devil, and epidurals are the devil, and you never want to go near them. But I think it's the judicious use of these tools, and there are times when they can be really helpful. But
Yeah.
because Pitocin is on the table today, it does not mean that is the end of your positive birth. It can still be a really great experience, even with all the bells and whistles and things that maybe we hadn't anticipated. And that flexibility of mindset is really, really important.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Like it's so true. Just being open-minded to things that are there when they're needed. I agree with you so much that at least where I am, like I feel like everything is just overused and tried to be done too quickly. And it's like these things take time. Like babies, like babies are coming out like it's got to get this big, right? Maybe even bigger. Oh gosh, I don't even want to think about that, right? You know what I mean? Like it takes time to dilate and it takes time for baby to move. And I think our culture is just like impatient.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately.
It's instant gratification. And now that's been coming for a long time, but now we're thinking, oh, I don't just want my Amazon delivery in the next 3 hours. I want my baby in the next 3 hours as well. And
Yeah.
it's like, it doesn't work like that. Well, you can
No.
force it, but nobody's going to be having any fun.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so
but
true.
and so tell me, which I think is fascinating. So you were able to get in the tub, even though you were on the Pitocin as well, which is fabulous.
They were so my hospital is like so amazing. So I live like 15 minutes from women and infants, which they're amazing. They have an amazing NICU. And I chose not to go there because they are they have very traditional approach.
Mm.
With birth. So I found this little hospital. It's like 50 minutes away and they have a great L&D and they were so awesome. Like they knew before I came in, they knew I was coming. They like decorated my room with lights and wrote my name on the wall. Like they're just so amazing. It's called Landmark and they just make you feel so at home, but they knew what I wanted because of my birth plan. And I just like know some of the nurses from my first labor and delivery there. And they made sure that they set aside like there were some like waterproof things, you know what I mean? So they set those aside for me and they wrapped me up. So like I have pictures and I'm happy to share them. Of the labor, my doula took them, but you can see me like wrapped up, and still in the tub. I honestly, I think I called, the thing you take around with you, Bob, like with the Pitocin hanging on him. Just took him everywhere with me in the shower, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. That being said, like, I really don't want to go that route this time because I just, I, I just don't. Like, it was fine, but I would like things to happen a little bit more naturally this time. So, but if I have to take Bob along with me again, it'll be fine.
Bob.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but yeah, it was yeah, I still look back on that. Like I look back at my pictures of that birth and it's just like, you're like on cloud nine after. I hope I feel that way after this one. I think I will. I keep like, how you always say it was in like the birthing classes and the preparation, like imagine the birth that you
Mm.
want. It makes such a big difference. It was so wild to me.
Like, I want to hear about these. You were talking about the pizza and mozzarella sticks.
Oh yeah. I think it's gonna have to be like a routine now. Like this labor has to have it. I was eating pizza and mozzarella sticks like during my labor, and it was the first thing I grabbed after my daughter came out. So I have a picture of her. Like I've got like blood smeared on my face. She's still there, and I'm eating a slice of pizza. So it was just like I love pizza, and it was part of my. I was like, I'm gonna have pizza, and then I'm going to go into labor. But I ended up having the pizza during my labor, which was pretty awesome.
So tell me about, so that's part of what we call kind of birth basking. So like mentally rehearsing like the emotions of like you've just met your baby and like, oh, the feelings of, yeah, just joy and accomplishment and just that feeling of I did it. So when you're thinking of you're 39 weeks now, so how have you been mentally rehearsing this birth? Because then we'll come back and we'll see how it compares
Yeah.
and maybe in a couple of days.
I hope so. So this, a little background with this pregnancy, it has been so challenging. So the preparation has had to be a little bit different. So, I always wanted 3, and my husband like wasn't on board. And we found out we were expecting, and my husband is amazing and very quickly got excited. And um I was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 weeks along. And I was in New York City with my best friend, and I woke up hemorrhaging, and
Mm.
I was like the floor, like big puddle, and I'm like, where your mind obviously goes, right? So I called my doctor, and I remember sitting on the train ride to get home, and he said, "I'm sorry for your loss." And it was like a dagger in my heart. Like I I the whole process is so challenging for so many women to get pregnant, to stay pregnant, and like I can't even fathom what they go through. But for like a little while, I felt that feeling, and it was really hard to hear those words. So I get home from New York, and I go for all the tests, and they all were pointing towards a miscarriage. So I then went for one final ultrasound, and there was a baby. And we were like, what? Like, talk about emotional roller coaster. Like, my parents, I told them we had lost the baby, and now there's a baby. And I found out I had a subchorionic hematoma right above my cervix. So basically, anything would cause me to bleed. So I remember like joining support groups and talking to my doctor, and like everything to me pointed to a miscarriage, like that was going to happen. Like even my paperwork said probable likelihood of miscarriage, and I was just this just went on, and I would bleed and bleed, and like 20 weeks I'm still bleeding, and the chance of miscarriage is still there. And I mean, when you're 20 weeks with your third, like I was very well showing, and you know it was just so hard to every day like wonder what's going to happen. I ended up getting put on bed rest 3 days before a retreat that I had planned to Turks and Caicos with 30 other women, and I did not go. But I knew I had to do what was best for like my sanity. Um, and it was really hard. So I started doing the gentle birth daily things very early because I needed it. But this pregnancy has been so emotionally draining that I've had to fight a lot harder to shut off my mind. Like it has taken a lot more out of me than the first one. Like the first one was not the first pregnancy, but the first time I did the hypnobirthing. I think I was just in like a different place in my life, and having 2 kids and being exhausted and being so stressed has like really been hard. So going into this one, like every day I'm still like, I still have work to do. I still have work to do. Whereas before, I felt like I've done the work. Now I'm still working hard, like every night. So I don't know if you have any recommendations for like other moms that might be experiencing this, but I'm finding that I'm falling asleep way earlier in the tracks, but I still listen to them, but I'm falling asleep a lot earlier. And my husband's like, Ange, it's okay. Like, it's still getting in there. And I'm like, but I don't remember half of it because I'm asleep. So
You
I don't know
know,
if you have
that's
any recommendations.
yeah, it is. It is such an interesting phenomena, really, because when I talk about my own experiences with using the program with Cooper, and the first time when I'm like, okay, we're going to get this on, get it going, and listening to my own voice, I couldn't switch off my mind. And I'm like, because I'm listening to my going, oh, cringe, and oh no, I am not going to listen to this for the next 9 months, and so that was so, but I had to just make the decision that, okay, I'm such a control freak myself. I'm going to have to go find somebody that I really like their tone of voice and how they say certain things, or I could just get over myself and so I decided I'm just going to get over myself, and I'm going to, so for the hypnobirthing, yeah, press play. And eventually I was like, yeah, I was like everybody else, like well, I didn't hear any of that because only that I wrote the scripts, I would have no idea what I was listening to. For the hypnobirthing, for the meditations, out, it's very different because
Yeah, I
they're
agree.
shorter and it's about focus and noticing what's happening with the mind. But so many moms, it's such a big question. They're like, oh, I don't hear any of it. Is it going in? But so for me, the proof is in the pudding. When if you're feeling less worried about the birth and more excited about it, then we know it's going in. But if somebody is like, I get worried when somebody won't let go and is hearing every single word every single time. That's a bigger challenge than, because
Same.
that's the type A personality that won't let go. So I think your body needs that rest. So I would say, yeah, if you are not like, I would barely like, I'd do affirmations and then I'd go into the birth rehearsal, and like, I would only be like a minute into the affirmations and I was gone. So yeah, so
Okay.
don't stress
That
about that
makes
at
me feel
all.
better. Your voice to me now is like, it's just so comforting, because I've listened like for so long that I like when I tell you go to sleep like that. It's really great. But yeah, that actually makes me feel better because I am very type A, and that's probably why I'm like, I need to stay up for this.
Yeah.
But
And the fact that you had such a positive experience on your second with Pitocin, that says a lot. That for me, that shows you've already done the work. You did enough work the last time that, because when we're busy with life and family, it's
right,
always a worry that, oh, I'm not getting in as much practice time as I did, because when you're doing this on your first baby and you've all of this luxury of this time and lying on the couch, but then when you have a busy life and other kids running around the house, that is not happening. So I
yeah,
will usually, again, reassure you that you've already done the work. So this for you is just really just a topple. So, and it sounds like you've already done plenty of work. So I think, yeah, that acceptance of, yeah, I've got this, I think will be the kind of trigger that will push you off into labor. Just,
yeah.
yeah.
I hope you're right. I mean, I don't feel any fear at all. It's more excitement.
Mm,
Um and I I don't like to use the word anxiety because a lot of people correlate that with fear, but I think I'm anxious because it's like when, right? And having two kids at home and like having to coordinate childcare. It's like things like
mm,
that kind of like are just bound to happen. But by no means am I like I can't wait to go into labor. My doula said to me, because I had a meeting with her a couple weeks ago, she was like, "You acted like labor was fun," and I was like, Well, it kind of was. Like, I was on cloud nine for like, still, I mean, she's going to be 2 next month. And I still think about it and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so many people ask me, like, how? And it to me is all the mental preparation. It really is.
And it is so lovely to hear these birth stories when moms are remembering their birth for all the right reasons, because
Mhm.
there is so much, birth trauma and really some not so good stuff happening in some hospitals, that when you hear this, oh, I cannot wait to go into labor. And it's just, yeah, it's refreshing. Yeah, I'm excited for you. I'll be gonna
Hopefully it's
put me
soon.
on your list.
I'm like ready. I'm ready. I mean,
But how are you
like,
seeing yourself in labor? Oh, look at that gorgeous book.
I know I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss it. I'm like, it's so bittersweet being like my last, you know, 'cause this will be my last. So I like feel bad rushing and wanting him to be here, but also, you know, like at 39 weeks, it's like, okay.
Hmm.
So it's bittersweet. Bittersweet.
And it's interesting as well with your doula. So when I have doulas coming through our training, and I will always say to them, and they will come back and tell me this. They're like, we are like, all of our clients are now going to do gentle birth, because not only do we see the benefits for the moms and the partners and babies, but it's good for us too, because with the gentle birth, my own experience working as a doula with gentle birth moms is that they're really well informed. They have a little kind of plan for when early labor starts. So it's not very often I'm going out at 3 o'clock in the morning, because they've got it, their partners are on board. The partners know what their role is. So, and
Mhm.
then we wander into the hospital and the partner is managing the lighting and getting the shower going. And so,
So
and there's very little hands on. That, like, as a doula, we do plenty of massage and the double hip squeeze and all of this. But my experience with working with gentle birth moms, and I know plenty of doulas will agree, that they're like, it's less stressful on our physical selves as well, because we're not having to do so much manual support, because mom is in such a really good place. And if she's in a good place, then her perception of pain is quite different as well.
yes, yes, I can totally see that. Um, when I think about my first labor, there were points where I think there were like 6 people on me, like pushing on my hips and my back, and like one doula wasn't enough. And then I remember that time I told you with Maya when I was in the tub, that was hands off. I was just laying there and they all were just watching, you know? And it's so true, like the amount of tension, not, I wouldn't even say tension, but like you picture a labor with like 6 people pushing on your body to try to help ease the pain versus you like laying down by yourself in a tub. Like just that experience in itself, like they're both so different. And the latter is like so much more calming, you know? But I felt like I needed what I needed that first time because I didn't have it up here, you know?
But just that comparison between having, all of that helpful hands-on support the first time around, and then that very calm experience with Pitocin
Yeah.
in the bath. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, it was really, I'll send you the pictures because it like I feel like they like speak so much to how it was, yeah, it was really an incredible experience. And I have no doubts that this one will be incredible, but it will be different because they all they all are, right? So
Yeah.
I'm very, very excited for it. It's don't know what's gonna happen. We'll see.
And what about your partner during, I guess, both labors? How did your partner feel, like, or compare the, two very different experiences?
So different. I remember looking at him after Gabe was born and he was like white as a ghost and he was just so drained. And with Maya, it was so different. Like we both were on cloud nine, you know? Um, it must be really hard for a partner to see their partner like having such a difficult time knowing that the preparation was there, you know? So I can't, or at least we thought the preparation was there. It was like night and day, you know? He was like night and day. And I
Yeah.
don't think it was because, oh, been there, done that. You know, it was just a whole different experience for both of us. So, yeah.
It's fabulous. So is there anything that you're doing differently for this upcoming birth?
Well, I was I like skipped over this part. I was put on bed rest for, oh, did I tell you that? I don't even remember. This would be like my pregnancy. I don't know. I was put on bed rest because of the hematoma. Yeah, right before the vacation. I mentioned that. So I taught probably 10 fitness classes per week. And October 9th, it came to like a screeching halt, and I stopped completely. And I did not exercise until January. So these past few months, January, February, March, I've really tried to get myself back into physical shape, because being on bed rest for 3 months, I think it did, I don't want to say did more harm than good, but I don't see what it did like good for me. You know, my high risk doctor said like, what's going to happen is going to happen whether you're on bed rest or not. She didn't really encourage it, but I was so anxious that I just wanted to just do it. So I have been working really hard to get myself back into physical shape. Because it's a marathon, like that day or days, it's a lot of physical work, you know, if you're squatting and you're standing and you're walking and all of that. So I've really worked the past few months on getting back there. I have not gone to a pelvic floor physical therapist this time, like I did last time. I feel like I've been able to work on relaxing my pelvic floor myself, and I don't have the time with 2 kids, to be honest. But I'm trying to do everything very similarly because I had a really good experience. My birth plan we pulled up because I was like, we should just use the old one. And there were a couple things on there that like don't really mean as much to me now as they did before. I think I went into my second like so almost like defensive because of having like a bad experience, that this time I'm like, oh, that's fine. Like, I don't care about that, you know? I was like adamant that they never tell me how dilated I am because I didn't want to get discouraged. But um, if they have to do a cervical check, like they can tell me it's okay. Like I think I'm over that. Like I know you can go from 3 to 10 quick, or it could take a long time, right? So I don't think I would get discouraged now like I would before. I do decline like all cervical checks, but upon going into the hospital, they require one. So I think I'm a little bit more lax about that. What else have I changed? Nothing else that I can think of. Yeah, just trying to get ready. I think one thing I would love to ask you, what are your thoughts and recommendations for a mom that has 2 kids at home trying to mentally prepare to go into labor? Because I truly think that for your body to do this, it's not just about the baby being ready, it's about like you being ready. And it can be really hard with a 1 and 4-year-old running around. So what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, and I have direct experience with this, working with other clients that have, you know, other like little ones, two and 3 kids at home. and they've had the very same experience where, let's just say, labor was getting started, but it didn't really kind of get into a rhythm until, and it's funny, like we would have the conversation of, oh yeah, the kids are still up. There's a lot of activity around the house. Labor's not going to kick off until they've had their bath and they're
Mm-hmm.
tucked up in bed. And it's literally as soon as their heads hit the pillow, that was it. Everything ramped up. So
Really?
what I would suggest, if at all possible, rope in friends, family, get yourself a little bit of headspace if you can during the day where you can literally just have that luxury of that time,
Yeah.
whether it's, lying in your own bed or, going outside and go for a walk and have your headphones on just to give yourself that little bubble.
Yeah.
As often as you can. You're on the home stretch now, but
Right.
if you can figure out a way to just, yeah, work that even an hour in where that's me time. And I feel like, yeah, that's just about now doing my last bit of prep. But I have no worries that you have done more than enough prep. I think really it's about you now letting go of that feeling to do more, that you are ready. You
Yeah.
are ready.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. It's the appointments are almost at an end. I had my last, I had a prenatal massage today that I really wanted to make it to. And I was like, I could go into labor after that because I really want this massage. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea. I know we do have a lot of support. I'm very lucky that I have my family and my husband's family nearby. So maybe we'll ship them there for a little bit.
Yeah. And then in labor as well. So oftentimes it's a question that always comes up around, well, thinking that, well, as soon as labor starts, I've got to, ship the kids off or figure out their care. But what I would usually suggest is take your time, because often what can happen is when the kids are shipped off right in the beginning, and then then especially if you're not in active labor, your mind then is thinking, oh, I mean, I wonder, did they have a nap? Did they eat that lunch? And then your mind is there.
Oh my
So
gosh, it's so
they
true.
can be a brilliant distraction and keep things very normal for a little while. But until you get to that point where it's like, okay, I really do need to focus now. And you will know that moment. And that's when, yeah, we're good to go now. But I think so having them around just normalizes it, and then you start to breathe through them and you feel like, oh yeah, these are getting a little more intense. Maybe we need to kind of get
Yeah.
things in line. But having them around can actually be really lovely time, and a little bit of distraction as well. And you're kind of pottering around the house with them. Yeah.
I'm so happy you said that because with Maya, my in-laws were at my house in like 15 minutes and they took Gabe and I was very fully nursing him at that point. And I felt like they were trying to be helpful and we asked them to come, but I felt such a feeling of a piece of me was missing when he was gone. And I was like, I just wish I could just nurse him because that's what I've been doing for the past 2.5 years and he wasn't there. And it's exactly what you said. But I think finding that balance of being able to just kind of shut off my mind for a little bit, go for a walk or lay in bed, but keep them here is important. My in-laws are so wonderful and my parents, they offered to stay here until I go into labor. And I was like, no, thank you, but no, we'll send them to you. Always
Yeah.
trying to help, always. But, I think it would be really hard to mentally be ready for that with my in-laws here.
Yeah, you do need that you need your space really
Yeah.
to let your body and your mind just get to that point of, yeah, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
And even like with nursing, your little boy, that's a lovely way to create lots of oxytocin and relax and have that lovely time together.
I had a really hard time pumping, so I never did it. I just exclusively breastfed. And I remember throwing the haka on after he left, and I was like, what is this? Like, this is not doing the oxytocin thing for me at all. So I'm not nursing my daughter right now, but that's okay. Hopefully I won't need to put the pump on before to try to get things going. So we'll see. We'll see.
Angela, this has been lovely, and I don't want to have you sitting on that ball any longer than
Oh
you
no,
need to,
I'm
just in
actually
case.
comfortable.
I'm thinking just in case you're on it later on this evening, and you'll be thinking, I could have not been on that ball when I was talking to Tracy Donegan. But so what would you, I guess, if you were, met a, first time mom in the grocery store today, she said, well, how do I prepare for labor? What advice would you give her?
So I get asked this very often because being like the owner of fitness studios, it's communities of women around my age, some of them, and definitely what I would have said is different from what I would say now. What I would say now is everything that I'm about to say to you is my experience. This is how it went for me. You can do all the prep in the world, eat the dates, do the spinning babies, right? And your labor might not be what you're anticipating. But if you can mentally prepare for whatever happens and be okay and comfortable with that, that is going to get you further than anything. I always recommend like some sort of meditation, hypnobirthing, like especially always gentle birth. But if you can't make the time for the gentle birth, at least try to work on some sort of mindfulness, because just being accepting of your plan may not happen, I think is just being accepting of that is really important. But replay in your head over and over what you want to happen. Like, make it happen, manifest it, but be prepared if it doesn't. I think that would be my biggest advice, is just to mentally be open.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's part of our, one of our kind of golden rules is, stack the odds in your favor.
Yeah.
So do all the movement, do the yoga, do everything you can to be physically prepared. Go to your pelvic floor specialist, but don't forget up here as well, because this is what's going to drive everything else. And that idea of, and it's interesting. I see just so many moms that they get to this point of acceptance before the labor. They're like, okay, I know at this point as well, like you're at 39 weeks, I've done as much as I can do. I've consciously and intentionally chosen a maternity unit that will support me. I've done my as much, physical work as I can now to get ready. I've done my pelvic floor stuff and I've done all my mental stuff. Then it's like, there's nothing left for me to do.
Yeah.
So I'm at that point now where it's like, let's do this, and the cards will fall where they may, but I know I'm not going to have any regrets because I've done everything I can. And I think for someone to come out of the birth experience with no regrets and feeling like, yeah, I had all the tools and I used them and I made things work for me in whatever way I could. That's so important, I think,
It is
for
so
that
great.
acceptance. Yeah. And that flexibility of mindset.
Yeah.
It's because acceptance is very difficult. We're not, I guess say most of us, acceptance can be really, really hard because we're, through life, we have, things happen to us that we don't want to have happen, and things we want to have happen don't happen. So and then we feel like it's the universe is against us. It's like, no, this is just life, and difficult things happen. But if we can get to a place of, I'll be okay no matter what, that I have the coping skills and I know I'll be okay. I think that removes a lot of the anxiety around
Yes.
trying to control what's going to happen in the birth, because at the end of the day, all we can control is how we are responding to what's happening around us. We can't, because when I have that, that mantra of, calm, confident, in control, and so often people misunderstand that as you can't control labor. No, of course you cannot. There's certain aspects you can, but it's about being able to control how you respond to what's happening. And that's the magic really for me.
It's so true. So true. I love it. Um, and I wanted to mention too, advocating for yourself and doing your research is another thing. Like we can't do any of that without having a little bit of knowledge, right? My opinion.
Mm.
You can't feel calm, collected, in control if you don't advocate for yourself. I can't tell you, I'm sure you hear it all the time. Moms are told that they need to do this, but always ask why. Like, there's no need to argue. Just understanding why, I think, is so important. That would probably, even more so than what I first told you, that I think is like so important, is to advocate for yourself. And if you can't advocate for yourself, get someone to help advocate for you so that you can be in that calm mindset and you know what's going on, you understand what's going on, and you feel confident in your decisions because you did the research and you advocated for yourself.
And doulas.
Yes. 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 I wouldn't care if I had 10 babies. I still would have a doula even on the 10th
Mm.
one. So,
Yes.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Don't give birth without a doula. Absolutely. And I know they're can be expensive, but I think there's ways, and there's I guess ways of figuring out that support for yourself, because
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people misunderstand, especially here in the US, that they expect that when you walk in the door, you're going to have a nurse that's going to be with you continuously. And a lot of parents don't realize that actually your nurse might have other, families they're looking after,
Right.
and you might be left alone just with your partner, who will be your sole labor support for like lots of time. And
Yeah.
that can be scary. So I think
Yes.
doulas are an absolute must-have,
For
for
sure.
in today's world. Um,
In Rhode Island, they just started covering it through insurance, which I think is so amazing. So they
Brilliant.
cover like 3 prenatal visits, the birth, and 3 postpartum visits, which is like incredible. I'm like, why did it take so long? But yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about where everyone can find you on social media, and a little bit about
Yes, of
your
course.
studios.
So, my Instagram handle is Angie Vieira. So it's Angee Vieira. Um, and I have like a highlight reel on pregnancy and some tips. I love to share as much as I can on there. Also, just sharing a lot about my business. So it's called the Bar and Yoga Experience, and I have a location in Massachusetts and a location in Rhode Island. If that is not nearby for you, we do offer retreats. Um, Turks and Caicos was last year. I wasn't there, but my staff is amazing, and they took care of it. But we'll have another one coming up this year and next year. So if you love to travel, you can always find me there. And that Instagram handles the retreat experience. And I also lead a bar training. So trying to think. I think that's it. I'm busy with that and 2 kids, but it's like the best busy in the world. So I can't complain.
It's you are busy is an understatement. I think and it sounds like you're still working pretty consistently. Like you're still working at the moment.
I actually
Maybe.
stopped teaching in October because teaching yoga and any type of like group fitness at my studio space, you have to hold space for people. And
Mm.
I just couldn't. I wasn't mentally there. And I knew that I had to take a step back. So, My staff teaches and I go and take class and I do all the behind the scenes work for now. I think I'm going to take a 6 month or 5 month maternity leave. I'll go back in like September-ish and start teaching again. But it really, like, it forced me to slow down and to delegate. Like, I hosted a retreat and didn't even go, and it went off without a hitch. And that was like important for me to be able to let go a little bit. So yeah, just trying to focus on me, baby, and family right now as much as I can. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Angela. This has been great. And I'm sure, well, I'll include all your details in the show notes.
thank
And
you.
I look forward to seeing that announcement on your Instagram. And
Yes, I will definitely keep you updated. And thank you again. It's like so awesome to meet you in person. I've been listening to you for years. So it's like so cool. And I really appreciate the opportunity and the time.
oh, it's been lovely. And it just, I get to live vicariously through all the gentle birth moms and hear all about these amazing stories. So, because we're not having any more.
How
Those
many
days
do
are
you
over.
have?
So, we have two boys and two dogs,
Boys and two dogs.
21 and 14, and about to be 14.
Oh,
So,
that's
yeah.
amazing. So amazing. But you can
So,
live through all of these stories, and I will
yeah.
post updates to my Instagram so you can follow along there as much as I can.
Yeah. You're going to have things to focus on, but yeah, I'm sure everyone will be dying to hear, and
Yeah,
maybe
everybody
we'll
is.
have you back on, and you can share all about this birth
Yes,
experience.
I can't wait. Can't wait. Thank you so much, Tracy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Angela.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Remember, empowerment begins with knowledge. If you enjoyed our time together and want more content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. So stay inspired, stay informed, and until next time, take care of yourself.